trained me to have to be perfect. Why are you having me here?
I don't have to have you here. That's one thing that we can make clear. That's one thing we can make clear.
What happened?
I wasn't willing to do what was expected of me, not talent-wise, but in other areas. At the very end, he fired me.
Aubrey O'Day is going to be a witness testifying against.
Why did Aubrey O'Day finally speak out, risking everything to testify against Diddy? Her cryptic social media messages and sudden appearance in New York City are only the first ripples in what could become a seismic shift in the entire case.
Us Weekly, Aubrey O'Day is set to testify in the Diddy trial. So according to Us Weekly, former Danity Kane singer Aubrey O'Day is set to testify in the Sean Diddy Combs high-profile trial. A source confirmed to us that O'Day was subpoenaed and has traveled to New York City to testify sometime this week or next. She's already here this week, but I don't believe she's all day tomorrow.
I am a very strict and focused businesswoman because working for Diddy for 6 years trained me to have to be perfect.
Working for Diddy.
Absolutely.
I love Diddy. You know, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy.
He expects.
Is he a good guy?
I don't want to answer that question.
The deal that we were offered, and when I say we, not every artist got it. Like Day 26 did not get it. But this is what it is. You can have your rights back to your music after Puff went under and somebody else bought our catalog. So this is long after we have 2 double platinum albums, $14, $15 an album from 2 million albums is...
About Aubrey O'Day being a witness testifying against Diddy, and I think the reports are 100% true, even though it's not been confirmed by the government. Aubrey O'Day did in fact touch down in New York City yesterday, and she posted this to her Twitter 2 days ago. You are standing at the edge of the season that will demand your truth in full voice. What you've hidden, denied, or feared will no longer fit the shape of who you are becoming. Doors that once ignored you, but because you carried the authority of alignment, you were not late, you were right on time. And everything you thought was a detour was actually divine preparation. Stay rooted, speak clearly, and the shift is already in.
According to Us Weekly, former Danity Kane singer Aubrey O'Day is reportedly set to testify in the high-profile trial involving Sean Diddy Combs. A source close to the situation confirmed that O'Day was subpoenaed and has already made her way to New York City, where she's expected to take the stand either later this week or early next. While she's already in town, it's unlikely she'll testify immediately, as Cassie is slated to be on the stand throughout tomorrow. O'Day's connection to Diddy runs deep. She worked under him for 6 intense years, an experience she once described as turning her into a hyper-disciplined, perfection-obsessed businesswoman. Working for Diddy? Absolutely. I love Diddy. He's a good friend, she once said. In an interview before pausing and sidestepping the question, is he a good guy? Her hesitation spoke volumes. O'Day also revealed that when Diddy's business operations began unraveling, artists were offered the rights back to their music, though not all received the same deal. We didn't all get it, Day 26, for instance. Didn't, she explained. But after Puff went under and someone else acquired our catalog, they made about $48 million off me alone. We had 2 double platinum albums. If it was $140 per album across 2 million units, yeah, do the math. While the government hasn't officially confirmed her role as a witness, many believe it's only a matter of time. Fueling that speculation, Aubrey touched down in NYC just yesterday, and 2 days before that, she posted a cryptic yet powerful message on social media. The post read, "You are standing at the edge of the season that will demand your truth in full voice. What you've hidden, denied, or feared will no longer fit the shape of who you are becoming. Doors that once ignored you will now open, not because you knock louder, but because you carry the authority of alignment. You are not late. You are right on time. And everything you thought was a detour was actually divine preparation. Stay rooted, speak clearly, and know the shift is already in motion." To many, this wasn't just poetic reflection, it was a statement of intent. Aubrey O'Day appears ready to speak her truth, no matter the cost. And with her arrival in New York, the stage is set for a potential turning point in the Diddy saga.
I just want to throw you the facts, okay?
Sure.
So this is long after we have 2 double platinum albums, $15 an album from 2 million albums is, what is the math on that, 48 million? And this benevolent man who's just now had a change of heart and has decided to pay us as talent. We only get the amounts due since Sony bought. It's about $800, $900. I have to sign an NDA that I will never disparage Puff, Bad Boy, Janice Combs, or Justin Combs Music, or EMI, or Sony ever in public. I would like to do a documentary for Hulu or Netflix or Amazon, a streaming site. I offered some of the girls, hey, if you need $800-900, I'll give it to you.
The fact that the kids are marching up to that court, praying over everything and walking in with a bunch of women also that are encouraging it. I don't know any father that would want their children to sit through testimony about how much their daddy liked to watch people lubricated.
They're going to start shaping multiple different charges that Diddy is being accused of. And not only that, they are going to corroborate things that they witnessed firsthand being around Cassie. She also alleged that Diddy had a very demeaning behavior towards them and made it very toxic. And that also plays a part into the...
Aubrey O'Day ignited intense speculation with a single cryptic tweet just days before she was spotted arriving in New York City, a move that now appears anything but random. The tweet, layered in meaning and emotionally charged, seemed to foreshadow a pivotal moment, not just in her life, but in the high-stakes trial looming over Sean Diddy Combs. You are standing at the edge of the season that will demand your truth in full voice. What you've hidden, denied, or feared will no longer fit the shape of who you are becoming. Fans immediately took notice, interpreting the tweet as a veiled signal that Aubrey was preparing to confront a long-buried truth, perhaps one tied to her past under Diddy's influence. The tweet went further. Doors that once ignored you will now open. Not because you knock louder, but because you carry the authority of alignment. This wasn't a casual musing or motivational fluff. It felt intentional, strategic even. And when O'Day was seen in New York during the opening phase of Diddy's trial, everything began to snap into focus. Aubrey's history with Diddy runs deep. As a former member of Danity Kane, she didn't just work under his label, she was molded by it. Over 6 intense years, she was immersed in his world, experiencing firsthand the tightly controlled, often toxic ecosystem many now claim was weaponized to keep artists compliant and quiet. She's spoken out in the past about the suffocating conditions behind the scenes, about the micromanagement, the silencing, and the emotional toll it took on her and others in the group. That puts Aubrey in a unique and potentially explosive position. She's not a fringe figure with distant allegations. She was on the inside. If anyone knows how the machinery of Diddy's empire truly operated, it's her. What makes her appearance even more significant is the timing. O'Day arrived in NYC at a moment when the case was beginning to gain serious momentum. The public quickly connected the dots. Was she there to testify? Could her insights corroborate the chilling claims made by Cassie Ventura and others? Though the government hasn't officially confirmed her witness status, multiple reports and credible sources suggest that Aubrey has been subpoenaed. And with her arrival coinciding with the trial's opening week, the buzz is deafening. Her presence, and her voice, could serve as the critical link between personal testimony and systemic pattern. Cassie's allegations against Diddy describe a disturbing web of control, coercion, and psychological manipulation. If Aubrey backs that up with her own accounts of abuse or exploitation, the trial could take a major turn. For years, Diddy has been accused of silencing those closest to him. Staff, collaborators, and even longtime friends have reportedly been pressured into loyalty or punished for dissent. But Aubrey isn't following the usual playbook. Her cryptic messaging, her sudden visibility, and her rumored courtroom appearance all suggest she's breaking away from the silence that's long surrounded Combs' empire. Her decision to speak out, whether through poetic social media posts or direct courtroom testimony, represents more than a personal reckoning. It's a cultural shift. In stepping into the spotlight, she's challenging the long-standing power dynamics that have shielded figures like Diddy for decades. Her defiance is energizing others who might also feel trapped by similar histories of intimidation and silence. But the real intrigue lies in what she hasn't said yet. What exactly did she witness during her tenure with Bad Boy Records? Was she exposed to the same kind of alleged manipulation, forced labor, or abusive conduct described in the legal filings? The answers to those questions could redefine the scope of this entire trial. Dawn Richard, another key figure from Danity Kane, is also rumored to be stepping into the legal spotlight. Her testimony could either reinforce or contrast Aubrey's, adding layers to the already complex narrative unraveling in court. As this trial accelerates, it's clear that this is no longer just about Cassie or Diddy. It's becoming a broader indictment of an industry that has, for too long, allowed power to shield abuse. Aubrey O'Day's presence marks a turning point. Her voice, once part of the soundtrack to Diddy's empire, is now being used to challenge it. What comes next could shake more than just a courtroom. It might redefine the very structures that have enabled silence in the entertainment world for generations.
That the optics of them being there and supporting father are obviously a very strong play for the defense. The jury is seeing them in there. What kids would sit there through this if they didn't love their daddy and this was not true? I don't think they probably like to hear that either. It's telling to me. It needs, in my opinion, it feels like daddy needs you in court because daddy needs all the optics to look in his favor, and I don't really care what you have to sit through.
Aubrey O'Day is sharing more thoughts.
She's ready. She's not going to back down. She wants justice for everyone, the insider said, hinting that O'Day has a project in the works that will be all about the Diddy trial. And Aubrey, here's the other aspect of this. I don't know if you guys saw the Diddy documentary on Max. D. Woods actually shared some interesting details about Diddy and Aubrey's relationship, highlighting a time where Diddy pursued Aubrey. Aubrey has alluded, but she's never said any specifics. That was the first time that I heard specifics in that documentary.
Corroborate the violence against Cassie Ventura, because Dawn Richard said that she saw this several different times, and that plays a part into the trafficking charge, force, fraud, or coercion of Cassie Ventura. But they also play in a big part in the racketeering conspiracy charge. As you can see in the RICO charge, one of Diddy's charges that falls under this big RICO charge with all of these criminal charges underneath of it is forced labor. And in Dawn Richard's and all of her Danity Kane bandmates, she said that they were forced to work long hours, between 36 to 48 hours, without breaks, without sleep, and even without.
Dawn Richard's testimony has emerged as one of the most explosive revelations in the ongoing legal firestorm surrounding Sean Diddy Combs. As lawsuits continue to mount and allegations stack higher by the day, Richard's statements bring a level of first-hand detail that could shift the entire trajectory of this trial. A former Danity Kane member and once close to the heart of Diddy's music empire, Richard isn't speaking in hypotheticals. Her claims are grounded in lived experience, and what she's shared is nothing short of staggering. At the center of her testimony are harrowing allegations of physical abuse, power misuse, and a deeply toxic environment. Richard has stated under oath that she personally witnessed Diddy physically assault Cassie Ventura on multiple occasions. These are not vague recollections or whispered rumors. She asserts she saw it happen with her own eyes. This kind of direct eyewitness testimony could become a game changer, offering the court a rare corroboration of Cassie's long-standing abuse claims. Cassie's lawsuit already painted a haunting portrait of alleged manipulation and violence. But Richard's account brings backup to the narrative, placing her as a crucial supporting pillar in a case that could rely heavily on consistency and confirmation of pattern. Her words may very well be the linchpin the prosecution needs. She laid out a detailed, distressing image of life within Diddy's inner circle. She described working under grueling, almost inhumane conditions, 36 to 48-hour stretches without food, rest, or sleep. According to her, this wasn't a rare exception. It was the norm. This wasn't just about overwork. It bordered on what legal definitions might classify as forced labor. She painted a picture of psychological warfare, disguised as management, demeaning verbal attacks, degradation, emotional manipulation. In short, what was sold as an opportunity to be a star turned out to be a relentless, soul-crushing ordeal. These claims, if substantiated, could escalate Diddy's legal troubles beyond the realm of civil accusations and into serious criminal territory. Richard's testimony could directly support the racketeering and forced labor allegations already in play, helping to establish a recurring pattern of abuse, control, and systemic exploitation that spans years. Richard is putting everything on the line. Going up against someone with Diddy's wealth, connections, and cultural power isn't just daunting, it's dangerous. It's a move fraught with risk, both personal and professional. But Richard's decision to come forward appears to stem from a place of conviction, not revenge. For her, this trial seems to represent a long-awaited opportunity to reclaim her voice and expose what she says happened behind the polished veneer of fame and success. Her role in this case also underscores a bigger issue. This isn't just about one man's alleged behavior. It's about the system that enabled it. Richard's detailed recounting of toxic labor conditions and mental abuse reflects a broader pattern that many in the music and entertainment industry have hinted at for years. Her voice is adding a new level of clarity and urgency to that conversation. Prosecution is expected to lean heavily on these aspects of her testimony to support their narrative. That Diddy's empire wasn't just mismanaged, but allegedly operated on a foundation of control, intimidation, and exploitation. And the way Richard's statements line up with those of other key figures, like Cassie and potentially Aubrey O'Day, only strengthens the case. When allegations begin to align so closely across different individuals, it's no longer about isolated incidents. It's about a possible awesome systemic culture of abuse. Naturally, Diddy's legal team is expected to push back hard. Their strategy may include attempts to undermine Richard's credibility, painting her as disgruntled or opportunistic. But discrediting her will be no easy task. She's not coming from the sidelines. She lived through the same years, the same rooms, and the same system that others have described. And now, she's connecting the dots for the court and the public alike. Aubrey O'Day's cryptic social media post and visible presence in New York opened the door. But Don Richard has walked through it with full force, delivering detailed, structured, and emotionally charged accusations that are already beginning to shift public perception and courtroom dynamics. The question now is, how much impact will her testimony ultimately have? If it holds up under cross-examination, and if it's supported by more evidence or additional witnesses, Richard's words could devastate Diddy's defense. Her account adds structure to what were once disparate accusations, crafting a narrative of long-term abuse that's becoming impossible to dismiss. We're approaching the core of this case. Each testimony feels like another layer stripped away from a carefully constructed public image. And as more insiders like Richard step into the light, it's becoming increasingly clear. This trial is not just about justice for Cassie or personal vindication for Dawn. It's about reckoning with the structures that have allowed figures, like Diddy, to operate unchecked. What comes next might not just rock a courtroom, it could echo through the entire entertainment industry.
Both Aubrey O'Day and Don Richard laying out forced labor allegations will also help victim number 4, who we know is using a pseudonym. And that's because Diddy is being charged with forced labor on victim number 4. And we found out in the opening statements that victim number 4 is an ex-personal assistant of Diddy. A lot of people were thinking that this could be Aubrey O'Day, but based off what we learned already, it's not. But her testimony, which is a part of her trafficking charge, they can also prove the forced labor charge that falls under the racketeering conspiracy charge, and also help victim number 4, who is an employee of Diddy, who also alleges forced labor. And I'm sure in their testimonies, we're going to get even more context that we probably never even heard about. But either way, Aubrey O'Day and Don Richard's testimonies are going to be huge pieces against Diddy in his trial. But y'all let me know what you guys think about all this.
The forced labor accusations against Sean Diddy Combs have shattered the carefully maintained image of his empire, exposing a reality that many insiders say was far more sinister than glamorous. Don Richard's testimony has been a lightning rod in this unfolding legal drama, pulling back the curtain on the harsh conditions endured by those who worked closest to the music mogul. According to her lawsuit, what happened behind closed doors wasn't just grueling, it was inhumane. Richard's account describes a work environment where 36 to 48-hour shifts without food, rest, or basic breaks weren't an anomaly. They were the norm. This wasn't about hustling harder or chasing success. It was about enduring unrelenting pressure under a man who allegedly thrived on dominance and control. The conditions she outlined evoke a system where people weren't just overworked, they were dehumanized, and Richard isn't standing alone in these claims. Her statements closely mirror those made by another individual, referred to in legal filings as victim number 4, who once served as Diddy's personal assistant. Their stories share the same painful refrain: exhaustion, emotional manipulation, and an atmosphere so toxic that even basic human dignity was in short supply. Together, their testimonies construct a powerful narrative of systemic exploitation. Richard's descriptions go beyond just long hours or harsh criticism. She details how mental and emotional strain became part of daily life. Under Diddy's alleged reign, fear wasn't a side effect. It was a strategy. The emotional abuse, she suggests, served a calculated purpose: to remind everyone who held the power and to suppress any thought of rebellion. This level of control, Richard implies, reached far deeper than a typical boss-employee dynamic. It veered into a territory where individuals were allegedly conditioned to accept unreasonable treatment as part of the job. The workplace began to resemble a psychological prison, where retaliation was a constant threat, and speaking out felt like an impossible risk. What makes Richard's testimony even more critical is how it fits into the broader framework of the racketeering and forced labor charges now surrounding Diddy. Her allegations help illustrate a pattern, a culture of exploitation that extended far beyond one individual or isolated incident. Her words align with those of Cassie Ventura, whose own lawsuit accused Diddy of repeated physical and psychological abuse. When viewed together, these accounts suggest that control, whether emotional, physical, or professional, was a defining characteristic of Diddy's empire. And that's the real weight of these allegations. They point to a system, not a series of accidents. The concept of forced labor here isn't limited to grueling hours. It speaks to the psychological conditioning that stripped people of their agency, convincing them that enduring such conditions was simply the price of staying in the game. Richard's claims illuminate a broader pattern, one where people were allegedly trapped by manipulation, silenced by intimidation, and kept in line through fear. Even more chilling is how normalized this behavior appears to have become. Based on Richard's account, the toxic environment wasn't hidden or exceptional. It was expected. Within Diddy's world, the absence of food, rest, and compassion wasn't a red flag. It was routine. That normalization is perhaps the most disturbing element of all, showing just how deeply the alleged system of control was embedded in the culture. Richard's decision to speak out is not just a personal act of courage, it's a cultural moment. For years, many in Diddy's orbit have remained silent, whether due to non-disclosure agreements, threats, or the sheer gravity of his industry power. By breaking that silence, Richard opens the door for others to step forward and share what they've experienced. Her voice may be the first of many, as others begin to feel empowered to expose the structures that allowed this kind of behavior to thrive unchecked. The ramifications of her testimony reach well beyond the courtroom. This case is quickly evolving from a legal battle into a broader conversation about accountability in the entertainment industry. Richard isn't merely testifying about mistreatment, she's exposing what could be the inner mechanics of an industry driven by exploitation, where those at the top wield unchecked authority over the lives of those beneath them. As the trial progresses and more witnesses take the stand, the momentum only builds. The narrative is no longer about isolated stories. It's about a deeply rooted system of abuse that operated in plain sight. Richard's testimony might be just the beginning, but it's a powerful spark. Her words challenge the industry to reckon with itself and dare others who've been silenced to finally speak. What happens next could reshape the future, not just for Diddy, but for the entire entertainment ecosystem. If her allegations withstand scrutiny, and if others follow suit, this trial might do more than seek justice for past wrongs. It might finally bring long overdue change to an industry that's been shrouded in silence for far too long.
Today, after 4 grueling days on the stand, the defense hit her hard during cross-examination, asking her about a stint in rehab for PTSD, a rape allegation, and asking her to read explicit text messages from over the past 15 years.
Richard accused Combs of sexual harassment, gender discrimination, and a hostile work environment by being exposed to sex trafficking and sex acts. She also alleged that she was a victim of false imprisonment. In her suit, Richard stated costs for post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and emotional suffering, and financial losses she suffered as a result of Combs' alleged behavior. Combs has denied her allegations. His lawyer told E! News in September, Mr. Combs is shocked and disappointed by this lawsuit. Richard's testimony in Combs' ongoing trial comes 8 months after she accused the rapper in a lawsuit of subjecting her to years of inhumane working conditions, which included groping, assault, and false imprisonment. The lawsuit, filed in September, obtained by E! News, stated, Mr. Combs frequently held meetings with Ms. Richard wearing only his underwear, despite Ms. Richard's protests and repeated requests for him to put on clothes.
Aubrey O'Day and Don Richard are breaking their silence. And in doing so, they're unraveling a narrative that Sean Diddy Combs has allegedly fought tooth and nail to keep buried. The impact of their testimonies is already being felt, shaking the foundations of the trial and stirring up questions that have lingered in the shadows of the music industry for years. These aren't just peripheral voices, they're insiders, women who lived and breathed the chaos within Diddy's inner circle. Now, their willingness to speak could trigger the kind of reckoning he never anticipated. Let's begin with Aubrey O'Day. As a former Danity Kane member handpicked by Diddy himself, she was more than familiar with the pressures of working under his control during the peak of his power. Though she's kept quiet for years, a recent cryptic post on social media sent shockwaves through the fan base. You are standing at the edge of the season that will demand your truth in full voice. She tweeted, a subtle yet unmistakable declaration that her silence may be over. Many believe those words were more than personal reflection. They were a shot across the bow aimed directly at Diddy. That post wasn't just poetic, it hinted at deep, unresolved trauma, and a readiness to finally confront it head-on. Aubrey's proximity to the inner workings of Diddy's empire gave her a front-row seat to the alleged manipulation, emotional warfare, and dehumanizing culture behind the music. If she's truly ready to talk, it's hard to imagine Diddy is fully prepared for what he might say, or the evidence she could potentially provide. Then there's Don Richard, whose recent testimony has proven to be a bombshell all its own. Her detailed account of life behind the scenes paints a far darker picture than anyone imagined. She described an environment defined by deprivation, unbearable working hours without sleep or food, and a relentless psychological strain fueled by Diddy's alleged intimidation tactics. But more than the grueling labor conditions, it's the narrative of control that threatens to do the most damage. Richard alleges that dissent was treated as betrayal. Loyalty, she claims, wasn't earned, it was demanded. The cost of stepping out of line, professional exile, or worse. Her testimony gives form to a system that seems to have been designed not just to extract work, but to suppress autonomy and crush resistance. In this environment, silence wasn't just encouraged, it was enforced. That kind of culture doesn't develop on its own. It's built, brick by someone with something to hide. Diddy's power, according to many critics, has long hinged on his ability to maintain control over narratives and people alike. From non-disclosure agreements to subtle intimidation, he allegedly wielded fear like a tool, ensuring that the people closest to him stayed quiet no matter what they witnessed. But what we're seeing now is different. O'Day and Richard aren't just speaking out, they're challenging the very machinery that kept them silent for so long. This is no longer about isolated incidents of misconduct. It's about a potentially deliberate effort to bury years of abuse behind contracts, fame, and fear. And these women, who once lived under that shadow, are now forcing it into the light. What makes this moment even more volatile is the speculation around what else they might reveal. Could O'Day or Richard have witnessed moments that directly tie into the allegations of sex trafficking and abuse brought forward by Cassie Ventura? Could they hold details that link Diddy to broader patterns of coercion or racketeering? The public doesn't know yet, but the mere possibility has put intense pressure on this trial and on Diddy's defense. Their involvement is creating a ripple effect. With two credible insiders now stepping up, the door is opening for others to come forward. People who were once afraid to speak may now feel empowered, watching the first cracks form in a once impenetrable wall of silence. This moment might very well be the spark that lights a larger fire. If O'Day and Richard's testimonies stand strong under legal scrutiny, the consequences could be profound. Their words may dismantle more than just a public persona. They could help destroy the illusion of invincibility that has long surrounded Diddy. The curated image of the mogul, the tastemaker, the untouchable icon. It's faltering. And with every new revelation, that illusion is becoming harder to maintain. This trial is shaping up to be far more than a battle over personal misconduct. It's a collision between fame-fueled power and the long-overdue pursuit of accountability. It's about tearing away the polished veneer that has shielded stars from consequence and finally confronting the truths buried underneath. One thing is certain: the tide is turning. With voices like O'Day and Richard now leading the charge, the momentum toward justice is growing, louder, sharper, and impossible to ignore. Whether this leads to new witnesses, further charges, or even systemic change in the entertainment industry remains to be seen. But what's clear is that Diddy's carefully constructed legacy is under siege, and it may never recover from what's still to come.